Welcome back to Smart English Talk. Hello, everyone. I'm James, your host, and I'm really happy you're here today. Before we begin, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever learned new English words, felt confident that day, and then a few days later, everything was gone? If your answer is yes, don't worry. You are not alone. And more importantly, there is nothing wrong with you. In today's episode, we are starting a special series about memory and English learning. And in this first part, we will talk about why we forget and why forgetting is actually a normal part of learning. Many English learners feel frustrated. They say, I study vocabulary every day. I practice grammar. But when I want to speak, my mind goes blank. If this sounds familiar, please relax. This episode is especially for you. James, let's start with an important truth. Forgetting does not mean you are bad at English. It does not mean you are lazy. And it does not mean your brain is weak. Forgetting means your brain is human. Our brain is not a camera that records everything perfectly. It is more like a smart filter. Every day, your brain receives a lot of information: sounds, images, words, emotions, problems, messages. Because of this overload, the brain must choose. It asks one question again and again. Is this important for my life? If the answer is no, the brain slowly lets that information go. This is why you can remember a song you love, a funny moment with a friend, or a scary experience very clearly. But a long list of new English words? If they feel boring or stressful, the brain says, I don't need this right now, and it forgets. James, another big reason we forget is how we study. Many learners try to learn too much in one day. They study for 2 or 3 hours without breaks. They memorize many words, many rules, and many examples. At first, it feels productive, but later, most of that information disappears. Why? Because the brain gets tired. When the brain is tired, it cannot store information properly. So even though you study a lot, your memory does not become strong. Learning is not about how long you study. It is about how your brain feels during study. Calm brain learns better. Stressed brain forgets faster. James, there is one more important reason we forget. We don't review. Many learners learn something once and then move on. They think, I studied this already. I know it. But memory doesn't work like that. Memory is like a muscle. If you don't use it, it becomes weak. If you use it again and again, it becomes strong. When you don't review, the brain thinks the information is not important, so it slowly removes it. This is completely natural. It is not a failure. It is how the brain protects itself from overload. Now here is the good news. Because forgetting is a process, memory can be trained. Memory is not a talent you are born with. It is a skill you can improve. Just like going to the gym makes your body stronger, using the right learning methods makes your memory stronger. In this series, we will not talk about difficult science. We will focus on simple and practical ideas that you can use every day while learning English. You don't need special apps. You don't need to study for hours. You just need to understand how your brain works. So, please remember this sentence. Forgetting is not the enemy. Forgetting is part of learning. The real problem is not forgetting. The real problem is giving up because of forgetting. And that's what we want to change. In the next part of this series, we will talk about how memory actually works in a simple way and how you can use this knowledge to learn English more easily. So, stay with us. Take a deep breath. Be kind to yourself. You are learning, you are improving, and your memory can get better, step by step. I'm James, and this was part 1 of Train More Memory for Better English. See you in the next episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Smart English Talk. I'm Emma, and I'm really glad you're listening today. In part 1, James talked about why we forget and why forgetting is normal. If you missed that episode, don't worry. Today's part will still make sense on its own. In this part, we are going to answer one important question. How does memory actually work? Don't worry, this is not a science class. No difficult words, no confusing theories. Just a simple explanation you can easily understand and use. Emma, let's imagine memory as a journey. When you learn a new English word, the journey has 3 steps. Step 1, receiving information. Step 2, storing information. Step 3, finding information again. If even one step is weak, memory does not work well. Let's look at them one by one. Emma, first, receiving information. This is the moment when you see a new word, hear a sentence, or learn a rule. For example, you hear the word confidence for the first time. But here is the key point. If you are distracted, tired, or stressed, your brain does not really receive the information. You may hear the word, but your brain is not fully present. That's why studying while scrolling your phone, watching TV, or feeling very stressed is not effective. Your brain must notice something before it can remember it. So, the first secret of good memory is simple. Pay attention. Even 5 minutes of focused learning is better than 30 minutes of distracted study. Emma, now let's talk about step 2, storing information. This is where most learners struggle. Your brain asks an important question here. Is this information worth keeping? If the word or idea feels boring, meaningless, or disconnected from your life, the brain stores it only for a short time. That's why you remember things like a joke that made you laugh, a story that touched your heart, or a scary experience very clearly. Emotion and meaning tell the brain, this is important, save it. But when you just repeat a word again and again without understanding or feeling, the brain says, I don't see the value, and it lets it go. This is why learning with meaning is so powerful, and we will talk more about that in the next part. Emma, now let's move to step 3, finding information again. This step is called recall. Recall means bringing information back when you need it. For example, when you want to speak English and suddenly remember the right word. Many learners think memory means storing information, but actually memory is about retrieving information. If you never practice recall, your brain does not learn how to find information again. That's why learners often say, I understand English when I read, but I can't speak. Reading is recognition. Speaking is recall. Recognition feels easy. Recall feels hard. But recall is what makes memory strong. Here is something very important to remember. When recall feels difficult, it does not mean you are bad at English. It means your brain is training. Think about exercise. When muscles feel tired, they are growing stronger. The same thing happens with memory. That small struggle, trying to remember a word, pausing, thinking, this is where real learning happens. So don't run away from that feeling. Welcome it. Emma, another helpful idea is this. Your brain remembers patterns, not isolated facts. If you learn words alone, your brain has nothing to connect them to. But if you learn words in sentences, situations, or stories, your brain sees a pattern. For example, instead of learning the word decision alone, you learn, I made an important decision today. Now the word has a place, it belongs somewhere. Patterns help the brain store and recall information faster. Emma, let's quickly summarize how memory works. First, your brain must notice information. Second, it must feel meaning or importance. Third, it must practice bringing the information back. If you miss one step, forgetting becomes easy. But the good news is, all three steps can be trained. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need